So our verse that we read about, where Paul says, when we go back and read it again, curse all who rely on the works of the law are under curse, for it is written, cursed be everyone who does not abide by all things written in the book of the law to do them. It sounds like Paul is quoting the Deuteronomy passage as proof that everyone in Israel had to keep every part of the Torah, or else they would be cursed if they didn't keep one part. In other words, if they kept most of it but failed in keeping the other half of it, they would be cursed. But that's not the case either. God's not saying you're going to be cursed if you don't keep all of it. Our verse is actually, as I understand it, a contrast to the previous statement made in verse 6, where Abraham is said to have been considered righteous on the basis of his faith. Remember, we just came through studying this idea that Abraham is the model of faith for Jews and Gentiles who place their genuine faith in God, which in Paul's day, because the Messiah had already come, genuine faith in God is tantamount or equal to genuine faith in Messiah. One cannot say that they have genuine faith in God without recognizing the Messiah who has come. And this is true today as well. Anyone who would be wished to be counted as righteous by God must reckon with the fact, the historical fact, that the Messiah has come. He has presented himself to God's people. The promises that the Messiah was come have now been enacted. Yeshua has stepped into the scene of history. He is a reality. He is no longer just a promise given to the people. Therefore, if we are to be counted as righteous in God's sight, genuinely righteous, eternally righteous, we as Jews and Gentiles must contend with the reality of Messiah's life and his death and his resurrection and his ascension and his intercession. By comparison, those who do not imitate faith-filled and faithful Abraham, but instead seek righteousness by circumventing God's true method of declaring a person righteous, these people, according to Paul, actually fall into the trap of being cursed by the very Torah they exalted in the first place. Isn't that irony? The very tool, the very thing that the detractors of Paul's day, the influencers, the Judaizers, if you want to call them that, the very thing that they were thinking was going to bring them righteousness, the Torah of Moshe itself, is actually going to stand in judgment of them. The Torah is going to judge them. Such individuals, instead of living within the blessing of Hashem, were in reality found to be the object of God's curse, because instead of submitting to God's way of making a person righteous through objective faith in Yeshua, the kind that Abraham had, these people were said to be setting up their own way of righteousness through ethnic status or through Israelite membership, a charge that's actually leveled by Paul against unbelieving Israel in Romans 9:31 and 32, as well as 10:3. Secondly, I think that in saying that all who rely on works of the law or observing the law in some versions, I think the second position that Paul is attacking is a more general sense, like the church is fond of pointing out. In other words, I say in my commentary that Paul is likely teaching against any superstitious notions that God extends covenant status to the individual, whether Jew or Gentile, who simply avails himself of Torah obedience outside of genuine faith in the giver of the Torah. And I think this is proven by the conditional clause, all who rely on, right? All who rely on, all who think that just being Jewish or that they're okay, or all who actually think that being Jewish and keeping the Torah that they're okay. I go on to say in my commentary, to what would the individual be relying on for his righteousness? It must be either his supposed legal status as a Jew, which, like the people in Paul's day, were really highlighting, or his Torah observance, maintenance, or a combination of both, viz. Covenantal nomism. Paul would have argued against either view. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? Either they're just generically being a Jew or being a religious Jew, like maybe the Orthodox do today.